stay on for a little longer, but if you hear the phone hang up, that's me exiting.
We really appreciate your patience. We know it's difficult to be on the end of a phone line when you're doing this kind of thing, so we've covered a lot of ground today. So I'll speak to you later, Drew, but thank you very much if you need to disappear, and I look forward to catching up with you after the event as well.
Okay, very good.
Excellent. Okay. As we continue this sort of building up a story around the space challenge, well, I thought it would be really appropriate if we introduced Philippa. Philippa, I'm going to get my email because I want to make sure I get the description absolutely correct when I say that you are the great-great-great-granddaughter of Sir James Clark Ross, who discovered the Ross Sea, which we've been talking about for most of the session, in 1841.
Yeah.
And so I thought it would be great to have you along in a couple of capacities, I guess. One is the family heritage and history. So you've been to Antarctica, and you can tell us a little bit more around that with the family connection. But also your own work, perhaps, and you've maybe alluded a little bit to that, because as a human ecologist, when we talk about well-being, when you're in extreme environments, you've already heard Drew's battle stories with being in -1 degree of water, is it? Like that? So the idea that a human being needs to be somewhere, a colony, a space station, whatever it needs to be, it's easy in some ways to get drawn away with the rockets and the tech, but actually, as you say quite eloquently before, what's inside the rocket is kind of the reason why the rocket's going in the first place, I guess. So, and that includes people. And so I thought it would be great for Philippa to share with us a little bit of her experience in an extreme environment and also that family connection, which makes it very real for the world. Thank you.
Thank you for the privilege of being here today. So, I'm just picking up on little things that appeared over time. So James Clark Ross actually was a British naval officer, and his mission was really to chart the seas. And he used the Earth's magnetic waves to find his way around and actually chart the maps and things. And so he initially he went north and he discovered the North Magnetic Pole in 1831. He actually made 6 trips to Arctic, and one of those trips he spent 3 years in the Arctic, and it was thought that he and his crew had all perished basically, but it was because of his ability to in those extreme conditions. He didn't have all the extra thermals and things that we do. He actually talked with the Eskimos, and they taught him how to build igloos and things like that. So actually, a lot of this, and my own sense, is going back to nature and looking at the people who live in those conditions. And because sometimes we get so in our head in techie and things like that, actually it's right under our nose. So, you know, and when you're there, they were really surprised to actually find it again. And then he was commissioned to go south and find the South Magnetic Pole, and there was rather a lot of, even more ice down there than there was up here. So in 1841, he found what's known as the Ross Sea region. And I can't remember the exact date, but anyway, he landed on a place called Possession Island, and that's called Victoria Land, which is at the top up there. Isn't he handsome? You know where I get my looks from, eh? So Possession Island is right at the top of, like, there's Cape Adare, and there's like a big basin basically, and McMurdo and Scott Base are right in the basin, and the Ross Sea is in front of it. So there's actually 89 different places that he named after crews and family and things like Franklin Island. Ross Island was just fantastic. So he was a great explorer, and he was actually slightly before the heroic era, but he was of an era where explorers, they were very adventurous, spirited people, and so, you know, without all this technology, they went and he didn't know where the shopping hell he was going, or when and if he was actually coming back again as well. So, and then we have another era with the likes of Scotts and Amundsen, and they went with a lot more information and on a particular mission. And then after that, there was a geographical era where there were lots of policies and things that came into effect. And I believe now we're in an evolutionary era, which is kind of going back to the beginning where the explorer, the adventure side, spirited side of things come out, and we need to connect with people's emotions and why it's important to them. So it's really important to ground all this information and what difference it's making to us. This is 2 years ago, this time 2 years ago I was there. It was the 175th anniversary since James discovered it, and being the cheeky person that I am, I actually contacted Heritage Expeditions and said, there's no way I can afford your trips down there. Have you got any toilets that need cleaning? I'm quite happy to see them. And so Rodney Russ actually, this is the only organisation that go down there. So it's about 200 people, perhaps a year, that actually get this privilege. And so I went down. It's a 5-week trip. I don't like the sea. I haven't inherited that side. So, the Southern Ocean, I wouldn't highly recommend it. But anyway, I survived. And as you can see, it's a little cold. So we went to Cape Adare, then we went right across to the Bay of Whales, and they actually named this, in the wake of Ross Scott and Armistead, this trip. And the Bay of Whales is right at the far end, and it's actually where James, that was the furthest south that had ever been sailed. And on this expedition, Heritage Expeditions, went that few degrees extra and they broke the record. It was actually set 175 years ago. So wow. I was on board at the same time. So this is looking from the Bay of Wales right along the Ross Ice Shelf. And no photo actually gives it any kind of perspective, because that's 600 miles long, this is the Ross Ice Shelf, and 1,000 metres tall. What you see, the colours were just mind-blowing, completely mind-blowing. And so the Bay of Wales, you didn't see a bloody whale at all. So we went all this way for 3 days on the sea, didn't see a thing, but we were really lucky actually, because the weather followed us. We were allowed, apart from we couldn't get off at the Bay of Wales, everywhere else we were able to land, which usually doesn't happen. And this is at Cape Royds, and I had at the moment with a penguin. Isn't he gorgeous? And I was sitting there on my own. This is where Shackleton's hat is. You probably can't see it in the background, but this huge colony, and it was 6:30 in the morning, and so the sun was really shining. It's 24 hours there, and you've got the sparkles of the minerals in the volcano and the snow. And there's a colony of penguins in front of me, and you really couldn't see it until actually the chef was playing angels in the snow in front of me, and this little chap came flying out, jumped over Connor, came straight up to me, and it was honestly, in that second, we were like one. He wasn't penguin and I wasn't human, you know? And then I was like, you know, like you do with animals, you end up talking, but there was a real understanding, and it was quite bizarre. And he went, okay, right, fine. And off he went, and then went back to his mates again. It was like he was on a mission. So really cherished that moment. It was so gorgeous. Very, very privileged. One of the things I see a great and parallel between James's work and mine. All my family, my dad is the eldest male descendant. They're all in England, and I just believe the universe has a great way of bringing things together, because I moved here 14 years ago. I escaped, thank goodness. And so I'm actually one of the only active family member doing anything. On the trip, the crew took, my uncle actually came on the trip as well, and I had a flag made with our family crest on, and they took us out to Possession Island. We couldn't actually get there because of the floating ice, but so we stood on a bit of floating ice, and I'm there going, I was here too, and I was told to hurry up. So my uncle, who's also named James, we held up the flag and really repossessed Possession Island, which was really rather special. And as I say, in that same year, in October 2015, after 7 years of campaigning for marine protection, it really, it still chokes me up now, we've got marine protection. And it came into effect in December last year. And so this is the first. And it's so important because it's the last most intact eco-marine system left on this earth. And sadly, the microbeads and plastic is already reaching the penguins. And that really breaks my heart. When you've had a one-on-one And to think that these little chaps, you know, you see things of some of the birds, you know, with the stomachs and the whales and things like that. There's only one ocean. We might divide it up into different ones, but there is only one ocean. And so the parallel between James's work and mine is the fact that he discovered the North Magnetic Pole, and I actually helped in my work. I work with the Earth's magnetic field and helping people find their true north. And we talk about extreme conditions here in Antarctica, but when I came back, actually the extreme condition was really here. The subliminal noise and our sensory overload. I wanted to go underground for 3 months, and you were talking about the sensory systems and things like that picking up. I believe we're like walking satellites ourselves, and that's how we receive information to make sense of the world, and that's how I help people find their own direction, their true north. But our senses are so dumbed down with information and gunge and extra crap that we don't need, and we need to, you know, peel the layers back. And that's the beauty of the Antarctica. It's real, it's raw. Whatever you take there, take it away. The Antarctic Treaty is, and that's what it's all about, because the only thing you can leave there is your heart, but you take that away, the memories away with you as well. I could go on forever, but the other connection, as far as New Zealanders are concerned, is that the Ross dependency region was gifted by the British government to New Zealand in 1959, somewhere around there, which is when the treaty came about as well. And so there's a real connection. It belongs to us. New Zealand is actually governing it, and we are part of, there's 24 countries in the EU who are the collective who make annual decisions on what happens in the Antarctic region. And my big argument, I actually spoke to the body 6 years ago and said to them, you know, yes, this is all about the land, the treaty, and they're arguing about the sea, and they're creating a divide, but nature's got no divide. We have to look at this holistically. Sorry, I'm going on forever, aren't I?
It's probably quite a good position to stop, but it also raises a question that I'd like to ask, if I may. And that's of the Space Challenge, which is around sustainability and how we use New Zealand's heritage and this kind of story and culture that New Zealand has with the region that's about to be the test ground for space. Thank you, Philip. I think you've put another angle on this that perhaps they're maybe not being considered around the rest of the country so much. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear if we look at applications to a space challenge that include a sustainable aspect.
Yeah, which is why actually, if you saw the judging criteria, we also have that as one of the criteria is to be environmentally sustainable.
Okay.
So yeah.
Thank you. I only have one more slide, which is not on the Space Challenge. It's about Tech Week, which was mentioned earlier. So I'd like to put that out. Thanks, Nathan. Yes, push the button. And so we've been talking about the New Zealand Space Challenge. So it is appropriate that I talk about Tech Week, because we've bumped into Tech Week twice. One is the Space Challenge itself. So we've got a closing date on the 30th of April, is that right? For regional applications. And then so that challenge goes ahead from there, with the main event for the challenge being announced in Christchurch as part of Tech Week. The other time we bumped into Tech Week, and I need to go and look it up now, was the event in Alexander, which was like a hackathon type event perhaps, which is relevant to the Space Challenge. And that also takes place in Tech Week. So very briefly, what's Tech Week? Who's heard of it? Okay, pretty much everyone. If you've not heard of it, it's a festival that happens in May of this year, 19th or 27th. There's lots more information, and I'm not going to take any more time now. If you go to techweek.co.nz. What I've put up on this slide is 4 events that are being discussed on the discovery part of the website, which you can create a profile and you can access. And you can see all of the 60 odd events being planned around the country at this stage. So there will be definitely more than 60 events than that. I suspect there'll be a lot more than 60. Northland is just starting to do this. We're just starting to share that message. So if you want more information on that, I'll leave a stack of my cards here near the door. You don't have to go just yet. We're welcome everyone to have more food and drink at the back. Thank our speakers, Philippa and Drew. Thank you for joining us and putting a lot more story, and I hope distance, in the way that the messaging here can ripple around more. So thank you. And different perspectives too. And that's a magic thing to do. And obviously to Eric and Emily for travelling to Northland as part of the challenge and sharing what looks like something that, as the rocket goes up, it drags the rest of everything else with it, in a way. And so we build that whole community of people and spacefaring. So thank you. If there's any questions, we can get into those too. But you can do it over a drink or a cup of tea and coffee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.